Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first in a series of 4 Icons in Business events here in 2021. We are back again to start this series in a virtual environment this year, but we certainly hope that we can be back in person with all of you again in the not so distant future. My name is John Konarski, publisher of In Business Magazine. We're thrilled to bring this very popular speaker series back for yet another year with the iconic speakers and companies that you all have come to expect over the 11 years that we've now been hosting Icons in Business. This quarterly series was formed to showcase local iconic companies, organizations, and the people influencing the business landscape. We've always had our speakers share with us valuable lessons they've learned, as well as the current challenges and opportunities they're facing leading these iconic brands and companies. Today, we get the privilege of hearing from Greg Marcus, President and CEO of the Marcus Corporation, a company that has been an absolute staple in the Wisconsin entertainment and lodging industries for 85 years now. Greg will share insights into the very real challenges that their company has no doubt been facing over the past 12 months here since the onset of the pandemic. But we'll also take a look at some of the opportunities that lie ahead for this iconic Wisconsin company. We're thrilled that Greg accepted our invitation to speak at this virtual Icons event to kick off the 2021 series, and we'll turn things over to him in just a few minutes here. But before we do, I'd like to thank our sponsors of this year's Icon series that make this all possible here today and throughout the year. Our presenting sponsor is Wps Health Solutions. For 75 years, WPS has been a leader in the insurance industry and a nationally regarded health benefits administrator for Medicare and TRICARE beneficiaries. WPS Health Solutions, saluting the past, embracing the future. Today, I'd like to welcome in Mark Rothwell, Vice President of Marketing for WPS Health Solutions, to share a brief message on their behalf.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Rothwell, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing at WPS Health Solutions. We're proud to be sponsoring today's Icon in Business presentation. If you've been missing going to the movies, dining out, and traveling like me, you're going to enjoy today's presentation. Greg Marcus, CEO of the Marcus Corporation, a leader in the entertainment and hospitality sectors, will be sharing the inspiring Marcus story. Both the Marcus Corporation and WPS Health Solutions have deep roots in Wisconsin. We both started with a single focus that grew into something bigger. The Marcus Corporation started in 1935 with the purchase of a single movie theater in Ripon, Wisconsin, and now has theaters, restaurants, and hotels in several states. WPS was founded in 1946 to help veterans returning from World War II afford the health care they needed. Our services have grown to reach active duty and retired military personnel, seniors, and families in Wisconsin, across the U.S., and around the globe. This year, we're proud to be celebrating 75 years of caring for our customers. At WPS, we're always looking for new ways to make healthcare easier for the people we serve, especially our senior customers. As we all know, seniors are more vulnerable to serious illness from COVID-19, and they're also more vulnerable to being scammed. Unfortunately, scammers are taking advantage of the fear and vulnerability surrounding the virus. That's one reason our Medicare supplement insurance now includes identity theft and fraud review services at no extra cost. Our customers trust us with their health, and this is just one more way we can assure them we've got their back. I hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and I can't wait until we get to do these meetings in person again. If you'd like to hear more about WPS or our identity theft and fraud review services, please feel free to email me at mark.rothwell@wpsic.com. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and enjoy the great Marcus Corporation story.
Thank you, Mark, and to the entire WPS Health Solutions team. I'd also like to acknowledge our premier sponsors of this year's Icons event series. Our first premier sponsor is Action Coach. If you're an owner or leader who wants to make more money in your business and regain the freedom that comes from running your business, that's what Action Coach does. Even in an extremely difficult year, its community members were up over an average of 20% in net profit. The model works across industries and company sizes. Visit makemoreworkless.actioncoach.com for details. Our second premier sponsor is Baker Tilly, a leading advisory tax and assurance firm dedicated to building long-lasting relationships and helping you win now and anticipate tomorrow. And last but not least, our third premier sponsor is the Madison Concourse Hotel. This is Madison's premier hotel located in the heart of downtown, and we do hope to be back doing these Icons events in their facility in the near future. But a very special thank you to all of our sponsors for their flexibility during this past year, as we've of course had to adapt to this virtual format during the pandemic. Okay, well, it's time to start our program here today and introduce our Icon speaker, Greg Marcus. Greg is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Marcus Corporation, a Milwaukee-based company that is a leader in the lodging and entertainment industries. The corporation has two divisions, Marcus Theaters and Marcus Hotels and Resorts. He joined the company in 1992, was elected to the board of directors in 2005, elected president in 2008, and then CEO in 2009. Greg actively volunteers his time as chairman of the Greater Milwaukee Committee, director of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, and is in leadership roles of many arts and entertainment organizations in Milwaukee and throughout the state. And we are extremely excited to have him here with us today. Before we turn things over to Greg, I do want to mention, if you have questions during the presentation, we'd like to encourage you to add them to the chat box. We'll be moderating them for a live Q&A following his presentation. So submit your questions there, and we'll look forward to that at the conclusion of his program here this morning. With that said, it is my privilege to now turn things over to our speaker here this morning, Greg Marcus.
Our people, our guests, our business. In that order are the three things the Marcus Corporation prioritized throughout the pandemic. That is what we focus on as we work through this challenging time. Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Marcus, President and CEO of the Marcus Corporation. And I'm looking forward to telling you more about our company's story throughout this trying time, as well as the opportunities that lie ahead. Thank you to John and In Business Magazine for the invitation to be here with you today. This year has no doubt been one of the most challenging in our company's history. As an 85-year-old company, founded during the middle of the Great Depression, you can say we've seen a lot. But 2020 was a year like no other. While there were difficult times to be sure, there were also moments of incredible bravery, commitment, and resilience. This is true from our frontline staff to our executive leadership team, who work day and night as we go through this crisis, all while taking great care of our guests, our communities, and each other. But before I jump in, let me quickly tell you a little bit about us. The Marcus Corporation is a leader in lodging and entertainment with hotels and theaters across the country. We were founded in 1935 by my grandfather, Ben Marcus, with the purchase of a single theater in Ripon, Wisconsin. We still operate that theater today, but Marcus Theaters is a lot bigger now, having grown into the fourth largest theater circuit in the United States with 1,097 screens at 89 locations in 17 states. We also have a hotel division, Marcus Hotels and Resorts, which owns or manages 18 hotels in 8 states, as well as several popular standalone restaurants. Here in Madison, we own the Hilton Madison Monona Terrace, the Marcus Point Cinema, and the Marcus Palace Cinema. If I were to sum up the Marcus Corporation in one word, it would be family. In my case, quite literally. I'm the third generation of the Marcus family to lead the company. Ben passed the baton to my father, Steve Marcus, our chairman, and I have been CEO for about 12 years. But as my dad and I like to joke, he and I actually came to the attention of senior management at an early age. I can remember countless dinner table conversations between my dad and grandfather. At times they were dull and incomprehensible for a young kid, P&Ls, bank negotiations, real estate deals. But other times they were thrilling, especially when my grandfather told tales of meetings with the likes of Walt Disney and Alfred Hitchcock, or meeting any number of sitting U.S. presidents. Along the way, I may have gotten in trouble a time or two riding the lions in the Pfister's lobby. This Milwaukee hotel was the first in our company's portfolio. And as you can imagine, free access to the movies certainly came in handy. But family means more to the Marcus Corporation than just my last name. It's who we serve. It's how we treat our associates. This was one thing that really shone through during the pandemic. To this day, we model our company the same way my grandfather did 85 years ago. Ben realized how important his employees were to his success, and everyone mattered. As he would say, our people are our most important asset. He and my grandmother Celia cared about the families and their employees. He and my grandmother Celia cared about the families of their employees, and they encouraged them to learn to take on more responsibility. It was that combination, a genuine caring for people and smart business sense, that led to the birth of what is today the Marcus Corporation. As we continue that mantra, our commitment to our associates and our associates' commitment to each other and our business is something I'm most proud of during the last year. When the pandemic came, our industries were among the first to feel the impact and still are among the hardest hit. This may very well be one of the toughest challenges our company has faced to date. But like my dad says, things change, they always have and they always will, so be prepared. That is why when confronted with a challenge, in my experience, there are typically three choices you have to make. 1, retreat. Realize you have to entirely reset your strategy, undoubtedly make a number of painful decisions, and start again. 2, wait it out and hope for the best. Often this includes explaining away the facts for why things are what they are, rather than confronting them head on and dealing with them. 3rd, identify solutions and charge ahead. During the pandemic, and like other challenges that have crossed paths with our company before, we took the 3rd option. It may not have been the easiest, but it was always the best choice. Retreating and waiting it out while hoping for the best just isn't us. It's just not the Marcus way. When the pandemic hit, we needed to act fast. No one knew what to expect or how to respond. What we knew is we needed to keep associates and guests safe. To do this ultimately meant temporarily closing all our theater locations on March 18th, a year ago. The rapid increase in hotel cancellations led us to also close several hotels by March 24th of last year. But as we were deemed an essential business, we continued operations at other properties until April 8th, until we closed all hotels, resorts, and restaurants. This had a significant impact on our business, but it was the right thing to do. Strategically, our company's always prioritized maintaining a strong balance sheet throughout its 85-year history. As such, we entered this crisis from a position of strength with a debt-to-capitalization ratio of 26%. Nearly a year later, that ratio has only increased to 37%, which is equal to or lower than the same ratio during 7 of the last 10 years. I find that remarkable. Our strong balance sheet and liquidity provides us with the financial flexibility to sustain operations as the recovery continues into 2021. This is in addition to the multiple state government grants we were awarded during the fourth quarter of fiscal 2020 that total approximately $7 million that will prove to be a real asset in the year ahead. We are grateful our government understands the importance of our industries and how hard we were hit. Our theater division also entered the crisis with significant advantages over those we compete against. For example, we offer what we believe is the highest percentage of recliner seating, proprietary large format screens, and food and beverage operations in the industry, certainly among the largest chains. Our theaters are truly state-of-the-art, and our future capital needs are greatly reduced because of all the work we did pre-pandemic. We also own the underlying real estate for the majority of our theaters, which allows us to reduce our monthly fixed lease payments and provided significant underlying credit support throughout the pandemic. With our theater team temporarily faced with a limited amount of new film product and limited customers willing to go to public places, they got creative and found new ways to meet our guests. Out of that came Marcus parking lot cinemas, so movie lovers could enjoy the 2020 version of a drive-in in our closed theaters' parking lots. This brought us back to our roots, from when my grandfather opened our first drive-in theater in 1949. But probably the most important accomplishment happened in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2020 with the development of Marcus Private Cinema. This new movie-going experience allows guests to reserve an entire auditorium for up to 20 people for a safe, fun, and stress-free social gathering opportunity. Initially introduced to customers via communications on our website and via our loyalty program emails, we subsequently enhanced our technology. This year, we became one of the first theater operators to offer customers the opportunity to purchase their private cinema experience directly from our website or app. As a result, this program really took off in these first few months of 2021 and has since proven to be a key component of the results this year. Just to really drive home Marcus Private Cinema's success, in 7 weeks, with just under 70% of our theaters open, we averaged over 1,500 Marcus Private Cinema shows per week across our circuit. Our market share in some individual films has more than doubled compared to our historical average. Not to mention, it has brought people back to the theaters and allowed some who might have been resistant to return to experience all the cleaning protocols and procedures we have in place. And while I can't put a number on it, we anecdotally have heard that it has encouraged many to come back for a regular show as well. We are pleased with this. We know there are still challenges ahead, but are encouraged by the green shoots we are seeing. There are many external factors like vaccines and reduced COVID numbers that play a critical role in getting customers comfortable with returning to movie theaters in higher numbers. These external factors are also critical to studios as they make decisions on the releases of new blockbuster films. As you may know, the vast majority of new high-quality films have been delayed over the past year, which is clearly an indication of the importance of the theatrical release to the profitability of the studios. And while no one was happy to see films delayed, the result has been a tremendous backlog of exciting films that are waiting for moviegoers as we emerge from our houses. In fact, on the opening weekend of the release of Tom and Jerry, its performance exceeded expectations. Now, these weren't the highest of expectations, but that Saturday's performance was the best day for our theater business since COVID. This has really energized our teams and speaks to the pent-up demand we believe exists for returning to theaters. We are also encouraged by seeing recent news of New York City theaters beginning their reopening, with restrictions in counties in California like San Francisco and Los Angeles just opening as well. China and Japan have both experienced record-breaking box office performance on several films lately as well. This bodes well for the studio's willingness to hold their current release plans in the spring and the summer. Please, don't interpret my optimism about what lies ahead to suggest we may not still feel challenges in the near future. There certainly is the possibility that there will be further changes in the film release schedule. And there have been a lot of discussions about what the theatrical window will look like in the future. We know there are uncertainties, but I want to emphasize that our team has met every challenge we faced so far. And I believe we're prepared to navigate through any further challenges as we redefine, refocus, and rebuild our industry-leading theater business. On the hotel side, reopening our hotels was somewhat of a mathematical exercise. We made the bet that we would be better off open than closed, and it proved to be a good bet. Actually, that's the analysis we do in both our businesses, and they've both worked out. While we're still struggling, we're able to provide work for our associates, mitigate the losses, and maintain positive operating momentum. Throughout the pandemic, the vast majority of our hotel guests have been transient leisure customers who are looking to get away and change their scenery after months of staying home. As a result, not surprisingly, weekend business was the strongest at all our hotels. Properties like the Grand Geneva Resort and Spa and Timber Ridge Lodge, well suited for families looking to get away, performed the best among our hotels. In fact, our golf revenues at Grand Geneva were higher than in previous years, and we had a record ski season this year. According to data from Smith Travel Research and compiled by us to compare our results, our hotels outperformed comparable upper upscale hotels throughout the U.S. by nearly 8 percentage points during fiscal 2020. And we outperformed competitive hotels in our markets by nearly 16 percentage points during that same time period. Another way of looking at our outperformance is to examine market share, which in the hotel business is usually expressed as an index. For example, a RevPAR index value of 100 would indicate that a given hotel is getting its exact fair market share of revenues per available room, compared to competitive hotels in this particular market. During the previous 4 fiscal years, our average combined company-owned RevPAR index ranged between 108 and 112, meaning that on average, our hotels were getting 8 to 12% more market share than you would expect if everyone got their proportionate share of business. Fast forward to fiscal 2020, where our hotels and others in our markets may have been closed for portions of the year. Our average RevPAR index for these same company hotels increased to 136. That means our hotels had RevPAR 36% higher than you would expect if everyone got their fair share. Now, as demand increases and all hotels are fully operating, we might expect that number to decrease some. But I think it speaks to our hotel division's ability to consistently outperform in our markets. We have very high hopes for leisure travel and believe there remains a lot of pent-up demand to go somewhere. With the vaccine rollout continuing to progress and overall COVID numbers in our markets continuing to improve, that bodes well as the weather improves and summer arrives. As challenging and as hard as this time was with so many unknowns, there were many positives that made us once again realize just how special our team truly is. First, we learned how resilient we are. Industry and company have weathered crises before. For example, World War II, the 1973 oil crisis, 9/11, the Great Recession, to name just a few. Like I mentioned, we've always maintained a strong balance sheet, which means we entered the crisis in a position of relative strength. We have an incredible leadership team who worked day and night to further shore up our cash position and make sure we were doing everything we could for our people. But when I talk about resiliency, I'm also talking about those in the front line. Those who reopened our doors, who sanitize every square inch of our properties, who smile so big under their masks, their eyes tell you how happy they truly are to see you. They kept showing up, they kept adjusting, and never did they take their eye off the guest experience. During this time, we also got closer to our guests. One of the greatest things about this business is the satisfaction one can get from making someone's day better. You can have all the tools and systems in the world, but the most important resource in our industry is our people. We listened intently to our guests and quickly rebuilt an experience that was not only safe, but was welcoming and made them want to come back. That included our Marcus parking lot cinemas. Brought us back to our roots, as I said before, from when my grandfather opened our first drive-in theater in 1949. And like I mentioned, as our theaters reopened, we launched Marcus Private Cinema. In our hotels division, we figured out how to create a bubble for visiting NBA and MLB teams and ensured touchless service for our leisure travelers. We got closer to our people. During this time, decisions were agonizing because of the people involved. On one hand, we had to navigate our businesses through an unprecedented freeze. On the other, we had people who are part of our Marcus family who we feel a deep responsibility for. We made a choice. Help as many of our people for as long as we possibly can. That included providing additional 2 weeks of layoff pay to associates temporarily laid off as a bridge to unemployment compensation. Between hotels and our theater business, we paid over $5 million in temporary layoff pay to bridge the gap between when they were laid off and when they were able to claim unemployment benefits. We also incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars extending the health insurance benefits of temporarily laid off associates. We sought government assistance when available. For payroll support, for example, our hotels spent over $10 million on qualified expenses using PPP loan proceeds, of which approximately 90% directly benefited associates, the vast majority of whom were rehired and would have otherwise been unemployed because our hotels were closed. And that's a very important point. If you're open and getting PPP money, you're actually defraying your employee costs while bringing in revenue. For us, we just simply took the money and we redirected it out to the employees who were not working at the time, which helped them bridge any of the lags in unemployment. It was very helpful to them. And colleagues banded together to help each other through our Marcus Cares website. This website was designed by our associates to stay in touch with each other and widely share resources that could be helpful during this time. A true example of what it means to be part of the Marcus family. We also started a private Facebook group so associates could support one another while they were apart. And I cannot tell you how many stories I have of how our associates went out of their way for each other. But the pandemic also helped break down some invisible barriers. GMs were now on the front line, cleaning, sanitizing, checking ticket stubs, greeting guests behind the front desk. Nothing creates greater understanding than walking a mile in someone else's shoes. The best part of all, we got better at our jobs. The pandemic forced all of us to get better at multitasking, problem solving, and collaborating. But it also required greater empathy, understanding, and flexibility to meet people where they are. These are hallmarks of what makes someone great in our industry. But the pandemic magnified those necessary qualities exponentially. There now remains a lot of focus on what we need to do to bring our guests back at full capacity, when it is safe to do so. As of now, continuing good news about vaccines, improving health conditions in our markets, and increasing consumer confidence bodes well for a return to normalcy. We're also prioritizing cleaning and sanitation with our movie star approach to health and safety measures at our theaters, and our Clean Care Pledge at our hotel division. Both meet or exceed CDC guidelines for cleanliness and sanitation. There's an equal focus on what we need to do to bring our people back. As demand grows, so will our hiring. Prior to the pandemic, the American Hotel and Lodging Association reported that hotels in the United States supported 1 in every 25 jobs. Not to mention the over 2,100 hardworking associates across our theaters, hotel and corporate divisions in Wisconsin alone. These jobs are important to the overall health of the nation's and our state's economy. That's why accelerating the work we were doing pre-pandemic to introduce more people to careers in our industries will be vital. We will plan to continue to partner with organizations so we can reach more high school students as they consider their education and career options. Our partnerships with area technical colleges to support their culinary and hospitality programs will also be top of mind as we rebuild these industries. One of our other main priorities will be recruiting a diverse workforce who are reflective of our communities. By partnering with community-based organizations that provide resources and training to uniquely abled individuals or those from underserved communities, we will have an even greater pool of talent. In addition to all the pandemic has taught us throughout the year, 2020 was fraught with vivid reminders about how far we have to go to truly create an equitable world. Marcus continues to be committed to nourishing a culture of equity and belonging, no matter where you started, no matter who you are, and no matter what you look like. This is something we will continue to prioritize and put a great focus on now and into the future. Throughout our history, the Marcus Corporation has been resilient in the face of adversity. Our creativity, tenacity, and genuine love of what we do drives us forward, not just to survive, but to thrive. With the initial rollout of 3 COVID-19 vaccines, including the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and as cultural institutions and sports teams in our markets begin allowing more in-person guests and spectators, we are encouraged that better days lie ahead. Words cannot adequately express how proud I am to be part of this amazing team. Because of them, our theater's customer experience scores some of the highest levels we've ever seen. Our hotels are having many groups rebooking events they were forced to cancel due to COVID-19. While we know there's a long road ahead of us, with the possibility of future bumps along the way, our company was built during challenging times. A few years after my grandfather purchased his first theater, he bought another movie theater. And another. By the early 1950s, business was moving. But then the bottom dropped out of the market, with attendance reduced to half its peak just a few years earlier. Thousands of theaters closed, and most of those stayed open were losing money. The culprit? Television. As millions of people abandoned the movies to watch TV in their living rooms, many experts predicted TV was the end of the movies. So what did Ben Marcus do? He took a risk, a big risk. He wasn't about to give up. It was not in his DNA. Instead, he built drive-in theaters, which were the only bright spot for the industry at that point. He wasn't afraid of failing. He just knew he needed to refocus and find new opportunities as he charged ahead. His philosophy was, every house has a kitchen, but people still go out to eat. When he told this story, he always explained, Americans are gregarious. They like to get away and mix with crowds. I don't think the public would be satisfied to stay home and watch movies on a tiny screen, he would say. I would say I don't think they're satisfied to sit home and watch it on a big screen. I completely agree with this statement and see many similarities from what he experienced in the 1950s to today. Some have questioned if movie theaters will come back, as the pandemic has forced many to rely more heavily on streaming services as they quarantine at home in front of their screens. But that will only last for so long. We've already seen people begin craving a sense of normalcy and wanting to have experiences with others. Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg have been quoted that they certainly expect people to once again watch films at the theater. People want to be together. They want experiences. They want to have fun. whether that be at a Badger football game, watching the latest blockbuster on the big screen, or enjoying a relaxing vacation. Thankfully, with our company built on challenges, we are ready for any that come our way, as we know our perseverance and dedication will turn them into successes eventually. Someday, this will all be behind us. There will be a lot of look backs and what ifs. But my hope is some of what we learned and who we have become will last for a long time. Resiliency, connecting to more that really matters, flexibility, and going above and beyond to care for and elevate others is what truly make a company successful during these challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg, for that very enlightening presentation here this morning. Certainly a very transparent look at the current challenges you and others in your industry are facing, and hopefully a much brighter outlook as we start to slowly emerge out of the pandemic in the months ahead. We're now going to go live with Greg here today, as I promised earlier. He'll be taking some of the questions that many of you have submitted during the program. So let me welcome back Greg Marcus for the live Q&A.
Hi, Greg. So we have several questions in the queue for you, and we'll just go ahead with the first one, which asks, given all the changes in home video streaming, what will be the long-term impact to theater going?
Oh man, it's it's a tough question to answer because I don't know totally the answer. I can tell you sort of what I think is. Look at you have a couple of dynamics going on. I think first of all, the press, they love the battle, streaming versus the movie theater. I mean, it's like a cage match, and they love to write about it. So, but I of course worry about perception becoming reality. But I think you have to sort of be careful to conflate the two, just on its face. Is it streaming or going to the movies? They're really two different experiences. Now, look, start with streaming versus cable. Well, those are exact. Those aren't exact, but those two, really overlap one another. And streaming is really a substitute for cable. And I'll make a point about it because I don't know about anybody else, but trying to navigate all these streaming services is a real challenge. It certainly doesn't, it's pretty easy to turn your cable and flip through and find nothing to watch. Going through your streaming services to find nothing to watch, opening up all the different apps, trying to go back and forth, that's really a big challenge. And yet you have a huge library that's very, very deep in the streaming services, and so that's the advantage to watching those. But again, and as they've gotten bigger, they have more content. But again, at the end of the day, we're going to talk about now theaters versus the streaming service, and I don't think that they're not, as I pointed out in my speech. There's a restaurant in every house, but there's a kitchen in every house, but people still go out to eat. They go to restaurants, and going to the movies is a different experience than going to than sitting home and watching. I've always said we're in a battle against the couch, and the couch is getting stronger, so the battle gets tougher. But people still do want to go out. It was interesting. I just saw a really interesting McKinsey study that talked about what's going to stick post-pandemic and what's not going to stick. And fortunately, I was happy to see, they talked about e-grocery shopping. They expect to stick. People won't go to the grocery stores as much. They're still going to shop. They're just going to do it e-grocery. But travel and entertainment, actually, they said we'll go back. Now, they don't think it may go all the way back, which I don't want to hear it's not going to go all the way back, and that's why this is a more nuanced answer. We don't exactly know how far, but they think they'll go back because people do want to be entertained. They want to be with other people. We are social creatures. People are sick of being at home. And as the one advantage I have against the couch right now is people are sick of the couch. And it's hard to find stuff to watch even on my streaming services. There is new stuff occasionally. They've got, Disney Plus has new stuff. I know that, and there's new things to watch. But I think when people finally can get out, they're going to want to, and they're going to want to take advantage of going to the movies. Now, again, on the margins, we may have some degradation in visitation, in which case then we're going to look to pricing. And then if you look, it's interesting. This is not a new topic. There's been a flow of product going into the homes for years, and it's been growing and growing every year, and it continues to grow. As it's grown, it has impacted us. And what was the response? Well, $5 Tuesday was the response. We lowered the price, and a bunch of customers said, gee, it's so cheap at home, but with $5, I'm happy to go to the movie theater. And it became one of our biggest days of attendance. And so, we'll respond with pricing. We'll respond with increasing the quality of the experience. If you think of Madison, the Palace, what a great theater. We've got a great bar there. We've got great food, pizza, and also and concessions and dining in theaters. We've got the whole package of things to do, and it really performs. And so we'll continue to have to be innovative, as we've always had to be. The theater today doesn't look like the theater of yesterday or before that. We continue to innovate to go against that battle with the couch. Now, as it relates to the studios, and there's the question, well, what if they release all their movies on the same day? Disney just announced that Black Widow is going to be on the same day as, and they're going to do it day and date with $30, same day, $30, watch at home. And I'm seeing a lot of commentaries. It's $30. I'll be able to get it for free in a few months. I'd rather just go see it in a theater. So the big films, I think, will be okay in the theaters, and we'll for the studios, the one thing they do like about the box office, it's per capita eyeballs. They get paid for every eyeball. If you get have a watch party and 10 people to come over and watch Black Widow for $30, they just got $3 a head. Now that's not a great price. Where they also lose the double sale. We have a thing called windowing, where they go to the theater and they watch it, and then they go back and they say, oh, I liked it so much, I want to watch it again on my streaming service. And so they buy the streaming service. Now, they may not have to pay $30 for it, but they're paying, $6.5, $7.5, $10, whatever they're paying for the streaming service. So they get the double sale. So the studios have to be careful about that. And really I think at the end of the day, the window is going to shorten. That's our period of exclusivity. It was 6 months 20, 30 years ago. It's gone down to 90 days. I think it'll be probably closer to 45 days, maybe a little bit longer for the big movies. And then the smaller movies will be shorter. Now, the interesting thing is, with the smaller movies, the studios have been reluctant to release them in the theaters in recent years. It's expensive. They had to pay to basically make the movie print. Now it's called a virtual print fee because it's all digital, but they pay us to run it through the projector because we have the cost of projection, but that's going away. We've paid off the digital equipment. And the prints and advertising that's the other thing, the prints and advertising. The advertising costs could go down if we're able to communicate to our customers through our Magic Rewards programs and our loyalty program, which is our loyalty program. If we can help with the marketing costs, we could see more product coming in. And for example, we haven't played any Netflix product, but there's been some Netflix product playing in the theaters because Netflix didn't want to give us a long window. But if the windows are going to shrink, there's going to be more product available to us. So what you might see is a bifurcation, big films playing, longer windows, but more product playing for a shorter amount of time that's smaller product that may appeal to smaller subsets of people, and maybe at a lower price. So I don't know, but again, it's a long-winded answer to a very complicated question. At the end of the day, let's go this way. People want to be together. People want to go out. People don't want to be stuck at home. Now, on the margin, will they stay home versus going to a theater at some times? Yes, and we have to do things to get them to come back to us, which is the experience and the pricing and to remain competitive. But it's not, I don't think it's people are either going to stay home or go to the movie theaters, because I don't care. At the end of the day, here's how I look at it. If you have a 16-year-old in your house, someone's leaving. So with that, I'll take another question.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, what has been the most challenging part of being a leader during this time?
Oh, man. Well, I would speak to our company. We talk about people being our most important asset. And the impact on our people is probably the single most challenging thing. To see, we're dealing with huge unknowns. How long is this going to last? When are we going to get back to something that approaches normal? And, that unknown, and then the impact that it has on everyone, and me too. It's just, you hate to see people go through this. It's a huge challenge, but we'll get through it. And we'll come out the other side, and we'll be able to take care of our people again and our business and our customers.
what entertainment options, drive-ins, private screenings, etc., that have been adapted because of the pandemic, do you expect to have staying power after things open up?
On the theater side, the stuff that I think will stay. First, I don't. The drive-ins were when nobody could go anywhere. That's not going to stay. I don't think. I do think there is a place for private screenings. I don't think. Look, if we're permanently selling, and then we call it, Marcus Private Cinema (MPC). If we're selling all of our theaters as private cinema, all days for forever, that's not going to be a business model that works. Just because when you put, we allow, it's basically anywhere from $100 to $200, depending on the movie. Maybe $179, maybe our top price for a top movie. I'm not even sure exactly the top price, but in that range. And it'll, but if you only allow 20 people into an auditorium, that model doesn't work over time. But could I see it being something, private cinema Wednesday? Yeah, sure I could. On days when we're not busy, top secret here, we're not that busy on Wednesdays. We're jammed Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, Tuesdays. Mondays pretty quiet, Wednesdays pretty quiet, Thursdays, just depends. And so could I see us taking 175 is our top. I'm getting fed the information. 175 is our top price. I was off by $4. But if I could see something like that being a more, on the soft days, using something like that as a come on to people. But in the end, I don't think that's the stuff that's really going to stick, I think, is the technology, and we've been working on this beforehand. This idea of things like ordering on your app, what people now see this as contactless, customer service. So people don't want to touch anything or talk to anybody. And so you can buy your tickets on the app. You've been able to do that for a long time. But what we introduced just really before the pandemic hit, this is sort of just happened to happen because, we were focused on the cost of labor, especially in the dine-in theaters. And we started thinking, and it's hard to, because if you want to work as a server as a server in a restaurant, that business is pretty even. In a theater, depending on the movies you're playing, go up and down, it can be real challenging. And so we thought, well, gee, if we could, and by the way, the labor markets were so tough, before this, we were thinking, well, if we could rely less on labor and let people put in their own orders on the app, let's do it. And so we started preparing it and getting it ready. And because we have all these dine-in theaters, and as it so happened, it became very necessary. And then we adapted it to the concession model very quickly. And now people can order their concessions and order their food and have it delivered right to their seat. And I think that's going to be around, because I think it's a great customer service. And I think it's good for our business because, frankly, the shorter the lines up here, the better it is for us anyway. And it makes it easier one-stop shopping when you buy your ticket and buy your concessions. So I think that's going to be around post-pandemic. And sort of any of the technology stuff is what you'll see post-pandemic. Hotels, too. It's any of the technology stuff will be post-pandemic.
Thank you. Our next question reads, "Hi, Greg. Thanks for your comments. I love the forward thinking that Marcus Corporation embodies. Can you speak more about shifts that the hospitality industry will experience? How this will affect how you will approach your development efforts for new properties?"
I don't know that there's, at the end of the day, that there's going to be huge shifts. Again, that was in looking at that McKinsey thing. I just happened to look at it. It doesn't predict huge ultimate shifts. It's going to be, it'll be interesting to see what we have to do, and we'll have to sort of play it by ear a little bit. I can tell you the pattern that it will follow. The first thing that's going to come, and we've already seen it, is the leisure customer comes back first. And so like a property like the Grand Geneva that we have, that's a kind of property where we already see customers coming back, because you're able to make your own decisions. I'm going to contrast it to business in a second, to the business traveler. But that leisure customer says, I got to get out of my house. Going back to I got to get off the couch. I'm losing my. If it's anything heartening about the movie theaters, it's seeing what's happening in travel, because the leisure customer is screaming, I cannot take it anymore. I got to get out of my house. And so we're seeing that customer come back, whether it's to our properties that maybe appeal more to that kind of customer, a Pfister, a St. Kate, a Grand Geneva, that customer's coming back first. Now these hotels also appeal to business customers, and what's happening? If you're in charge of somebody else and your office is closed and you're doing everything on Zoom, you're probably not going to be. You're probably not sending somebody out on a trip. But we're even starting to see that start to come back a bit. And so what'll happen with that is the first thing that'll happen is the salesperson will walk into his or her boss's office and say, "You'll never believe what just happened." And the boss will say, "What happened?" "I just lost the XYZ account." The boss will say, "Why? What happened?" "Our competitor was with the customer, and they took the business away from us." And then the boss says, "You know what? We better get back out there again." And then that business customer is going to start traveling, and then the conferences will start happening. And conferences, remember, they serve two purposes. One is to get information about the business you're in, and two is to network for your next job. Very hard to do that on Zoom. I mean, Zoom, great to get us through all this. Frankly, I think it stinks. I mean, it's a horrible way to have meetings. It's really not. Now, where does it apply? It applies for infrequent communication, maybe some one-to-one stuff. I think some of the technical jobs could move. It comes back to, let's talk about who's going to be in the office. We're going to never come back to the office. I don't believe that either. Young people can't apprentice. I have a son who's working for a bank, and he's not happy being by himself. I mean, he could do it. There's some benefits to it, but he said, "I'd rather be in the office and meeting people and seeing how things go and learning the business, essentially apprenticing." And then you get where you've got to have strategic discussions among people and sparking ideas. That's going to come back. Now, will there be, if you're in a technical job where you're essentially sitting in if you're sitting working by yourself. I mean, I look at some of our IT guys where they've got the headphones in their ears and they're looking at their computer screen all day. I guess that could be somewhere else. Now, the other side of that is, so now what you could see, which is good for us, as groups become remote. When I say remote, what might happen is that the groups of people will move. It won't be like, "Hey, Bill, you can go work in Boise, and Susie, you go work in Austin. We'll get on the Zoom every day for 6 hours and torture one another." I might say, "Bill and Susie and your team, if you want to get out of this high rent district, Boston, New York, San Francisco, you can take your team and go somewhere else where you'll all be together. And then once in a while, when we all have to get together, we could do it telephonically. But you guys will have to go together." And then that could be good for markets. They say smaller markets like Austin and Nashville. I wish they'd say Milwaukee or Madison for that matter. But I think that'll be helpful to smaller markets in that regard. And then what does that mean for hotels and the kind of markets we're in? Because we're not in the huge markets. Those groups are going to need to get together when, they're going to have to find places for themselves all to get together because they're going to want to be together, not always technologically. And that might be good for our hotel business, where so some travel may go away and some may pick up. Again, and we'll adapt our business models and our sales approaches to that. But again, I sort of think that's going to be on the margins. I don't think there's going to be a huge change in how human beings travel. Now, it could take 4 or 5 years for this all to sort of come back. But again, we're humans. We want to get out there. We want to go be amongst people. We want to explore. We are explorers. That's what we've been forever. And I don't see that totally changing so that we can now become hermits in our caves. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now, will it take time? Yeah, it will. Humans adapted to the way they are now, what's going on in the situation now. But, I don't think you're going to reverse thousands and thousands of years of genetic encoding with this.
Thank you. Our next question. What makes the St. Kate Hotel unique from other travel experiences, and what can guests expect?
Oh man, it's interesting. I was going on our gang. I'll tout our own horn here. Our gang's really excited. We've moved up to number 6 on TripAdvisor in the Milwaukee market, and I think it's actually number 1. And in fact, actually, if you look at hotels of its type, it's number 2. The Pfister's number 3. I'm not going to say who's number 1 because I'll tell you the St. Kate's going to be number 1 before long, the way it's going. But you read the reviews, and the reviews are, amazing. It makes you feel so good. I love this place. There's nothing like this place. It's really an amazing travel experience, and we're getting recognized for that too. I'll come up to what that is in a minute. We opened this new hotel, very different, and we knew it was really different, and we knew it was really interesting and special. And but nobody else did. And so I'm like, why aren't people talking about it and everything? And why don't, when I Google it online, how come it's not showing up as the best hotel in Milwaukee or tied for the best with the Pfister? And what we found is that that it takes time for the world to find you to like get in those rankings, number one. So like we were the number one hotel in Milwaukee in the Condé Nast poll recently. Well, it takes a year for Condé Nast to find you, and amazing in the first 9 months after we opened, we were essentially closed with this pandemic. So it's been a struggle to get people to know who we are at first, but that's going to come, because I think when you do something that's so great, people are going to be interested and want to come see it and be a part of it. And so what is it that's so great? It really is a hotel that it gives you, it is an experience like none other. I mean, first, look, it's a great hotel, and at its core, it's a place where people come and they enjoy each other's company, and they stay and they sleep in our beds, and they eat in our restaurants, and they go to our bars, or they're just in the neighborhood and they're going to the bar or eating in the restaurants and eating some great pizza. Our pizza is awesome, Proof Pizza. I think it's one of the best pizzas in town. Our restaurants, we have a great restaurant called Aria, which is like a 3-meal-a-day restaurant that you can get great food at. We've got Giggly, which is a champagne bar. There aren't these champagne bars in Milwaukee, so that makes it very different. What a cool. There was one other, and I'm not sure of its current status, but Giggly is a great view of Red Arrow Park and the Marcus Center for the Performing Arts in Milwaukee from the second level of the hotel. So you go up and hear some great music and have a great glass of champagne or any other drink you want. It's not just champagne. It's you can get beer and booze and wine and everything you want. Or we have a great bar downstairs. We just call it the bar. But beyond that, that's the core, and it's about taking care of people. And that's one thing I'm reading in our reviews that are so great. Our team there takes care of people, and they say this. Everyone here makes you feel good. That's what you got. That's what you got to do first. I don't care what your hotel is, but then you add the layer of the arts, and being a place where we salute the arts, and we have great art, both visual and performing. We celebrate the visual and performing arts throughout the hotel. And so you can come and you can be entertained by visual arts, and you can learn something, and we want the art to ask questions, and that's what art is about. Some of it, well, art can go money. Art can do a number of things. It can just be entertaining. You can look at it and say, that makes me feel good. That's great. It can say, you know what? That's asking me a question about the world, and that's great too. It's there to be provocative, and so we do that. And then we've also integrated the performing arts. So we have live music playing. We have a theater called the Arc Theater, which we've had, as when we opened up, we've had theatrical performances in, or musical performances in. We do artist presentations. We have a great partnership, and this is really special, with the Museum of Wisconsin Art. We're probably the only hotel with an institutional museum inside of its 4 walls. And we've got our main gallery right off the lobby. We've dedicated it to the Museum of Wisconsin Art. And it's been a fantastic partnership, because they do beautiful, they celebrate Wisconsin art, and they are the best in the state at doing that. And under Lori Winter's direction, she wanted a satellite in Milwaukee. They're based in West Bend, but they wanted a Milwaukee satellite, and we said we got a home for you. And so it's been a wonderful partnership. And you come and you see great artwork, along with other. We wanted to cover the whole panoply. We wanted to have great Wisconsin art, great international recognized artists, and we do. You come in and you see this beautiful horse when you come in. It's Deborah Butterfield. She's an internationally acclaimed artist, sculptor. We've got beautiful art throughout the hotel. We've got young and up and coming artists throughout the hotel. It feels great on so many levels, and I urge everyone to come and check it out and stay in it and tell everybody about it, because we want customers. I think I got one more question.
Will you be doing more old blockbusters in the theaters? Love the idea of watching Avatar or Star Wars Empire Strikes Back on the big screen.
I think there'll be event films where we do stuff like that. It's not going to be tons. People, it's interesting. They say they want it, but the truth is they really like the new stuff. But if people look at, if we can get people to show up, then we will do it. Now, I think there's more of an, if you'd have asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said that would be very hard to get people to come, because one of the keys, and I talked about this earlier, when you release a movie, there were 2 big costs in releasing: the cost of the print and the cost of the advertising. Print being the film strip, now the digital file and advertising, and you need to scale to advertise because the key for us is to drive people across the country. You want to be advertising on the Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Seth Meyers. You want to be on those shows and the Super Bowl and all those things. Well, if you're playing something once or twice, even Star Wars, you can't advertise on the Super Bowl for it anymore. But with our ability to touch our customers through Marcus Rewards, and where we have nearly 4 million members across our circuit, that ability to be able to market to our customer base, I think gives us the chance to do more specialty stuff. And that's what I think will help with the smaller films and the new smaller films, the stuff you might not know about, and that they couldn't afford a big national advertising campaign anymore on. And as well as, retro titles, we call them, whether it be a Star Wars or an Avatar. I think that's where you'll see stuff like that come back.
Will be our last question. Thanks everyone for your questions. Is there a fourth generation involved in the business?
No, not yet. They're still a little young, but they're getting closer. But the kids are all college age. Everybody's out of the house. I'm alone with my wife, but the kids are all out of the house, and we'll see. They're all where we've been, very fortunate. They all are hardworking and motivated kids, but they're not getting educated right now, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you everyone for your questions.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this Icons program this morning. Again, just a real transparent and enlightening presentation from Greg Marcus, and we cannot thank him enough for agreeing to speak to the Madison business community during this time. I also want to extend our sincerest appreciation to the sponsors of this year's Icon series. Our presenting sponsor again is WPS Health Solutions, as well as our premier sponsors, Action Coach, Baker Tilly, and the Madison Concourse Hotel. Thank you all for your flexibility in working with us during this past year as we were forced to pivot a bit to this virtual format. And a huge thank you to all of you for tuning in here today and attending this virtual installment of the Icons in Business series. As I mentioned earlier, this is our first in a series of 4 quarterly Icons programs this year, so please be on the lookout for more information coming soon on our second quarter Icons speaker. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll hope to connect with all of you again very soon. Thank you.